As promised earlier, we have an interview with Claudia Christian.
I'm totally jealous that you got to do this interview. She sounds like such a neat person to talk to.
She was great to talk to. Preparing for the interview, I read her book, Babylon Confidential. Great book. I got it on Audible, unabridged version. It's a really good book.
Did she read it on Audible?
Yeah, she's the narrator.
That's awesome when that happens.
Because she lived her life, so she can express it more in her words. That's why I chose the Audible version over the written version.
How cool is it to have the author, especially someone who's a star, read you a book?
It's like, okay, I'm from one of your favorite TV shows and I'm going to sit down and talk to you for 6 hours about my life. It's like, awesome. And then I got to talk to her on the phone.
How is that as an experience?
It's amazing. And I hope to do it again and again, interviewing people from Quantum Leap.
She told you a lot about the episode and about her life and all sorts of stuff in this interview, huh?
Yeah. Let's play that interview now.
All right.
We are very lucky today to have on the Quantum Leap podcast Claudia Christian from the Quantum Leap episode Played Against Seymour. She played Alison. Thank you for joining us so much. Thank you for taking the time to talk about Quantum Leap with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
I guess my first question would be, could you share with us a little bit about your experience filming Quantum Leap?
Well, it was an awfully long time ago, but I do remember a couple of things that really stood out in my memory, which one of which was the costume designer, Jean-Pierre Dorliac, created some unbelievable outfits for me, including one dress that I had to be sewn into. And I had never used a slant board before, but these were the apparatuses that women used to use in the films when they had very tight corsets or clothing that you just couldn't sit down in. So I had to actually lean up against one of those things because I couldn't sit in the dress that he made for me. He did finish. He actually sewed me into it. His work was just stunning, and that made a big impact on me because I saw how much effort he put into it. And yeah, everybody on a crew works very hard, but that was just one particular thing that stood out for me. Scott Bakula, I remember being very, very generous of spirit and very, very, very kind to his fellow actors, including me, who was just a guest lead, And that impressed me as well, because a lot of times that's not the case with people who are basically carrying a show. But he was a lovely man, absolutely lovely. And it was just a neat concept. It was sort of based on, there was a little bit of the Bogart, this thing with the hats and the, I don't know, it was very nice. It was sort of period, from that Ingrid Bergman, Bogart, Casablanca kind of feeling. So
I was just going to say a whole Casablanca feel, yes.
Yeah, exactly. It did. That shot with the trench coats and the hats it was neat. And yet a lot of it, especially the stuff with Willie Garson, who I ended up meeting a number of times throughout the years, when we had to really talk sort of like 1930s, There's a dropping in Clapper was one of the lines from that I never forgot because it was so funny. Willie Garson coming out and saying that, about somebody that we were chasing. So altogether, it was a really fun show to work on. Is
the dress you were talking about the one that was very revealing?
The black sequiny kind of dress. They said they wanted to go for a Jessica Rabbit look, the red hair and all that.
I think they succeeded. You were very beautiful in that episode.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
Oh, and speaking of Willie Garson, yeah, his dialogue in this episode was almost, you couldn't even understand what he was saying. There were so many metaphors.
Oh yeah, all of the it's like those expressions from the day. Great set of pins, great gams. He was a cub reporter. It was very cute, and I thought it was really, really well done.
I'm glad to hear you say that about Scott Bakula. You hear that a lot from different co-stars in their interviews that they star with Scott Bakula. Say he's a great guy, and you hear it from everybody. So it's good to hear it from you.
Yeah, no, he's a really lovely man.
Because I just finished reading your book, Babylon Confidential, and you tell the truth about a lot of your co-stars.
I do. Well, if there's a fine line, there is no fine line, actually. If you're going to write a memoir and you're only in your 40s, then there has to be a reason to write it, and in addition to that, you have to be completely honest. And if you're trying to come clean about something, I think you have to tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. Otherwise, I don't think people will buy it. I mean, buy it not in the sense of purchasing it, buy it in the sense of believing it. And some of the tales that I told were told for entertainment, and some were told simply to make a comment on this crazy business that I've been in for 30 years.
I'm never going to look at Corbin Burnson the same again.
I don't think a lot of people will look at him the same way anymore.
But amazing book, amazing journey, Babylon Confidential. If any of our listeners haven't read it yet, I highly recommend it. Where in the book would your filming of Quantum Leap fit into that book? Timeline-wise, sorry.
Oh, time-wise. I think I would have to look up the year of that episode.
1989.
Do you know the year offhand?
1989.
Oh, 1989. Well, let's see. I got my first series in 83 when I was 18, so I was only 24. So I was married when I did Quantum Leap, and that would have me working quite a bit in television right then. And I'd already done a couple of films, but I was working a lot in TV. And that was after I'd done a couple of series for NBC.
Black's Magic.
Black's Magic and Behringer's, yeah.
I watched a couple of Black's Magics last night because I had read in the book that you were in those, and you played Alexander Black's daughter. That's
right, Hal Linden and Henry Morgan from MASH. From when I was a kid, I used to watch MASH, and he played my grandfather in that series, so it was neat. I guess Brandon Tartikoff, who was the president of NBC at the time, was a big Magic fan, and that's why they made that series.
When I was a kid, I was a big Magic fan, and I watched it live, and it was nice to see you in it when I watched it again.
Thank you.
Most listeners probably know you from Babylon 5, where you played Susan Ivanova.
Yeah, that's been probably had the most impact on my life, that job. Science fiction fans are the most loyal group of people I think I've ever encountered. Just wonderful. It's been almost 20 years since I started on that show. And now that it's showing from the very beginning again in the UK, I've got, a little group of young fans starting up again, and due to DVDs, there's always a new generation discovering the show. And it's really held up. The CGI looks dated, but we were the first sci-fi series to not use models, to actually use CGI, I think. But I think the storyline and the characters and the writing really holds up. And I think Joe Straczynski created something eternal, and it touched a lot of people. I've met a lot of people through the world. Thanks to Babylon 5, I've traveled the world and been able to meet people all over the place. And it's always a continuing theme that this show touched many, many lives. And I'm honored to have been part of it. I played a Jewish bisexual Russian telepathic commander at a time when there weren't really any Jewish characters in space, and there wasn't really a lot of bisexual characters being portrayed in a positive light. So I think it was a really good thing for me. I've actually made a lot of friendships through that show as well, and they've lasted.
It was a really good role that you had, and you portrayed it well. And I was lucky enough to watch the whole series like back to back. I bought the complete series and watched it from beginning to end, and I just fell in love with the series and your character. You're right about the CGI, but once you get into the storyline and the characters, you don't even see the CGI.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of drifts off to the background when you see people like Andreas Katsoulis playing Jakar and then eating up the scenery. You kind of forget about the rest of it.
I loved reading all about Babylon 5 in your book, but as I got into your book, I realized you were in so many more things that I had seen than I hadn't realized.
Yeah, I seem to have one of those faces as well. That it's funny because even today, as in an Office Depot, and somebody stopped me and said, "I know you. You're famous. You're in Desperate Housewives." And I thought, no, I'm not in Desperate Housewives. But I said, no, but I've been in a lot of stuff. But it's always that they recognize me, but they can't really pinpoint what it is. So it is because I've done a lot of stuff, about 50 films and hundreds of hours of television, and in a broad range of characters. So I think it's easy to forget that I was in a lot of stuff.
Could you tell us the reason why you wrote Babylon Confidential?
I wrote Babylon Confidential mainly because I really wanted to help people. I wanted to share my experience dealing with alcohol abuse, and I found something that worked for me after trying just about every traditional treatment that was available out there. nothing worked for me, and I continued to binge drink for about 5 years, and it really affected my happiness and my health and my life, and I wanted to put an end to it. So when I found the Sinclair Method in 2009, I called the author of The Cure for Alcoholism, Dr. Roy Escapa, and I asked him what I could do for him, because he is, thanks to his book based on Dr. David Sinclair's work, it essentially saved my life. And he said to me, well, you have a modicum of celebrity, so write a book. So I did. And that was really the impetus for writing the book. I knew that it was cheeky of me and presumptuous of me to write a memoir at, 45 years old, or however old I was when I started it. But I also knew that the message that I had could potentially save lives. And here we are in 2013, and it has saved hundreds and hundreds and thousands of lives. I myself personally have over 100 people on the Sinclair Method that I've put on it and helped them through the process and the treatment, and I have a 100% success rate. In addition to that, I started a nonprofit organization called the C3 Foundation, which is www.c3foundation.org, and that is a place where people can get information for doctors and for their family and friends and loved ones. Anybody who's affected by alcoholism can go there for as much information as they need so that they can either start the Sinclair Method or approach their doctor or their therapist or psychiatrist. I want to eventually make naltrexone easier to get for people. I would like, in a perfect world, to have clinics, much like methadone clinics, available for alcoholics and their families to just get naltrexone and go on this treatment, because it is the most successful long-term treatment for alcoholism in the world. It has an 80% success rate. And if you compare that to rehab or AA or moderation or any of these other methods, they have 95% relapse rate and maybe a 5 to 10% success rate. So to me, this problem of alcoholism, which is costing America alone billions of dollars every year, it's also costing about 80,000 lives, not to mention the trickle-down effect of families being destroyed and lost days of work and accidents and medical bills. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's one of the most costly diseases in the world right now. And in America, it's in the top 3. And there is an easy, simple, effective, FDA-approved pill. You know, it's inexpensive and safe with very little side effects. And nobody's ever died on the Sinclair Method. Nobody's ever overdosed. Nobody's ever gotten tremendously ill or anything. It's incredibly safe. And, I believe that this is the future of alcohol treatment. And I don't understand why it's not more utilized. I do understand it's because it's not financially beneficial for anybody. Because the more you use the pill, the less you need the pill. So it's not a money-making thing, and it would put rehab out of business. So, and that's a multi-billion-dollar business that doesn't work. So it's a big struggle right now to fight up against those businesses, but I intend to do so. In fact, I'm going to be on Larry King on November 14th talking about the Sinclair Method. And currently I'm making a documentary about it, and I'm hoping that will reach more people. So that's really my goal right now. And once again, getting back to why I wrote the book to help people. That's my joy now, is to help people with the same thing I went through.
It's an amazing book, and I think it will help a lot more people as time goes on as well. I've never heard of the Sinclair Method before the book, but it seems like everybody should know about it that's struggling with alcoholism.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I was shocked that when I went to rehab, nobody mentioned it to me. And I was shocked when I went to hypnotherapy and detox and all these places that nobody ever told me about the Sinclair Method, until I realized that the reason why they don't talk about it is because they don't want to lose their jobs. I mean, $30,000 to $60,000 for rehab, $3,000 to $5,000 to medically detox. You don't need any of that with the Sinclair Method. I tell everyone it's true. I got cured for less than $50. I bought a used copy of Dr. Escapa's book, The Cure for Alcoholism, on Amazon, and I bought 30 pills online. And next thing you know, I had no interest in alcohol. My cravings were gone. My compulsiveness about it was gone. And now 4 years later, I maybe drink 4 times a year, 6 times a year. Holidays or my birthday, I'll have a couple of drinks, and that's it. I just take a pill and have a couple of drinks. Most of the time I'm sober, and 40-something% of the people on the Sinclair Method go completely abstinent. It's miraculous. And when you get a phone call or email or take a Skype session with somebody and they say, wow, I've never known my mother. I got this from a 16-year-old girl. She called me and said, I've never known my mother my entire life because she was drinking. And now that she started the Sinclair Method a few months ago, it's the first time this kid's ever known her mom sober and ever really gotten to talk to her mom and to know who her mother was. And when I hear things like that, it just breaks my heart. And I think of all the children out there who are dealing with alcoholic parents and all the spouses who are dealing with an alcoholic spouse and all the parents of children of alcoholics, how desperately frustrated they feel and how helpless they feel. And here is this simple solution. You take a pill, an hour later you have a drink. Within a few months, it causes pharmacological extinction and you no longer are an alcoholic. I mean, I believe that people think it's too good to be true. And I think a lot of people just don't understand the science behind it. I was lucky enough to be raised with a family of doctors and scientists, so the neurological aspect of it is fascinating to me. And it makes sense. Extinction makes sense. It's been around forever. I mean, Pavlov, look at that. I mean, it just makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And I have a few friends that I think would benefit from this book. Would it be appropriate to give them copies of this book?
Absolutely. And what's even take it a step further, anybody, and I mean anybody, can reach me directly. I've made this, I answer 50 to 100 emails a day. They can reach me at Claudia@BabylonConfidential.com. That comes directly to me, and I can help send them literature about the Sinclair Method. They can also go to that website, which is the c3foundation.org, and 3 is spelled out, by the way. They can go there and also get information. Giving them a copy of Babylon Confidential helps, or a copy of Roy Escapa's The Cure for Alcoholism, that helps. For people who can't afford it, I also have PDFs available. And that's all I want to do now is help people. So certainly, if you have friends, send them to me. I can also help them if they can't get a prescription from their doctor. I can send them to the proper places online to purchase naltrexone, which a lot of people have to do because doctors are ambivalent at best and hesitant sometimes about prescribing it because either A, they're not educated about it, or B, they're not willing to do liver tests. C, they just don't want to. I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's such an innocuous, declassified prescription. In some countries, sell it over the counter. And you could more easily overdose on aspirin. Seriously, it boggles my mind when doctors refuse to prescribe it because, quite frankly, it's a drug that can save your life. So, and they'll give you OxyContin or Valium, but they won't give you an opiate blocker. I mean, it's just staggering to me. I mean, there's things that you can buy over the counter that are far more dangerous than naltrexone or nalmefene.
Well, like you said, there's no money in it, and there's no money in curing something, only treating it.
Well, that's just it. Is that, like I said, the more you take the pill, the less you need the pill. So once you reach a point in your extinction where you're abstinent, you no longer need to take naltrexone or nalmefene. So you stop taking it. So now the pharmaceutical companies are going to stop making money off that particular client. But I spoke to a company today, and it was very refreshing. When I told them the reality of the situation, I said, yes, potentially you'll have a client for life because some people will continue to drink within safe levels. And they will be the ones that will continue to take naltrexone for the rest of their life. And he said, well, we're actually a pharmaceutical company that cares about people getting better, so that doesn't matter to us. So that was the first time I've ever heard that. Because when I called a rehab place last year and I said, why don't you use the Sinclair Method, I wish I would have recorded this call because they said, well, why would we do that? It would put us out of business. Boy, do I wish I had that on tape.
They were being honest.
Yeah.
It really does seem like a miracle drug, a miracle method that goes along with the drug. And I'm so glad that you found out about this because your story might have ended a totally different way without it. Absolutely.
I definitely... because I was a person that wasn't a consistent drinker, I was a binger, then when I would have 9 months of sobriety, and when I would fall off the wagon, it was getting progressively worse every time I would fall off. So yeah, I could have been one of those people who had a grand mal seizure after trying to detox or something. I know people who suffered horrible strokes. It's just, it's a very frightening thing, and especially if you don't understand addiction and you've never experienced addiction, it's a very frightening thing when it happens to you because you're just not in control of yourself. And I'm a very strong, disciplined person, and for me to be out of control was scary. It was really scary. And the nice thing about the Sinclair Method is it changes your brain back to the pre-alcoholic state. So you're no longer thinking about alcohol, which a lot of times when I was sober, just from pure white-knuckling it, I was obsessed with alcohol because I couldn't drink. So I was obsessed with the fact that I had to be sober. And with the Sinclair Method, that goes away because it literally extinguishes the thought of alcohol or the compulsion. All of that is gone. So it really is I hate this expression, but I'm going to use it. So you're not a dry drunk, which a lot of people, even Bill W. died begging for whiskey. They are always standing up and saying, I'm an alcoholic, and they're always thinking about alcohol, and they're always talking about alcohol, and that just isn't a part of my life anymore. And it's freedom. It's freedom from the chains of addiction and the chains of the thoughts of addictive behavior. So that's the beautiful part. I wanted to be back to the person who I was before the addiction crept in, and that's exactly where I am today. And that's what makes this such a beautiful treatment. It doesn't just make you stop drinking, it makes you stop thinking about alcohol as well.
It makes for a great ending to the book as well, because the whole time I was really worried for you, even though I knew you had written it, so you were okay, but I just wanted a good ending. Even for people that aren't suffering from addiction, your life was amazing. I mean, going to New York as a teenager and going on a date with Billy Idol.
Yeah, it's funny. When it's your life, you don't think of it in those terms. But I had a girlfriend. I was in London with a friend of mine, and she turned to me and she said, "Do you realize that you've had the most exotic life of any of my friends?" And I thought, exotic life? And here, mine. Sometimes I think my life is so pedestrian because I'm such a loner, and I spend so much time reading and just being alone that I don't think of it as glamorous. But I do suppose that if you look at it on the whole, especially my 20s and 30s, it was a good fun ride. I mean, I definitely had some experiences that a lot of people don't have, and I had a lot of good fortune in my career by working steadily for 30 years and being able to live a decent life doing what I love. So I have been very, very blessed, and I understand that, and that's why I'm fully willing and desire to give back right now, and that's what I'm doing in everything that I do now, making the documentary, spending time with talking to alcoholics and their families all day, every day. That's really my way of giving back because I've been very, very blessed. My life has been good, despite that hiccup of having an alcohol addiction. I've had a very good life, and I have a great family and friends around me. So I've got a good support system, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people have nobody to turn to. So I hope that, they can turn to me.
On a personal note, just getting finished reading your book, how has your life been since you wrote the book?
My life has actually gotten even better because I have something that makes me happier even than acting, and acting is very joyful for me. But just this, by writing the book and coming into this world of dealing with people and helping people, I realized that this is actually more of my calling than anything else. I had to go through hell in order to find my life's work. And that's why when people say, wow, it's really, you went through some horrible times, my response is, yes, but I would do it over again. And it was not easy, believe me. Being an alcoholic was the most difficult thing I've ever experienced in my life. It was a heinous, heinous disease or learned behavior or whatever you want to call it. The experience of going through that was awful. I hurt people and I hurt myself, and it was just awful. But like I said, I would do it again to be where I am right now because it's made me stronger. It's solidified the relationships that were important in my life. I know exactly what I want and what I will and will not put up with, and I love helping people. So I'm in a really, really healthy relationship right now. I have a wonderful man in my life. I'm doing what I love to do. And I have great relationships with my family and friends because it's not clouded with addiction or the histrionic behavior that goes along with being an addict. So my life is the best it's ever been right now. It really is.
That makes me happy.
Thank you. It's very sweet of you.
Thank you for all the entertainment you've given us over the years, and can't wait to see more of it in the future. Another Quantum Leap question, maybe just to end this conversation a little bit. Scott Bakula, is he a good kisser?
It's funny. There's only one person I really remember kissing in my entire 30-year career, and I remember it because it was so mind-blowingly good. And people always laugh when I say who it was, but because of his big mustache. But it was Sam Elliott.
Uh-huh.
And that's the only person I really remember kissing. I don't remember kissing Scott. I was probably nervous, and I was married at the time, so I was probably really super self-conscious, and I'm sure he was married. And, those things are usually awkward at best. But I did see him jogging around Lake Hollywood a couple years ago, and he's a very handsome man, and he still is.
I would agree. I have a little man crush on him myself.
I don't blame you. Scott Bakula is not only nice, but he's a stud. He was shirtless. I have to say, I was impressed. Yeah, but he's lovely. But I do not remember that kiss. I should lie and probably say it was wonderful, but I don't remember it.
People can get the book at BabylonConfidential.com, right?
They can get a signed copy, and that money goes towards finishing up my documentary at BabylonConfidential.com, or they can buy it online. Amazon or any of those other online book stores. They can purchase it there.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very much, and have your friends contact me.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much, Miss Christian.
Thank you. You have a wonderful night.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thanks again to Claudia Christian for letting us interview her and talk to her a little bit about her experience with Quantum Leap. I can't believe she doesn't remember kissing Scott Bakula.
I think I would remember that.
I think I would remember that.
But it's not a romantic thing.
Yeah, on screen it's romantic, but in real life there's like 30 people watching you and you got to do it 18 times from different angles.
I'm sure that takes the romance right out of it.